Welcome back. Mayor Tory putting forward a police reform motion in a bid to stop systemic racism and give further support to mental health. But does that mean slashing the department's budget? Right now, that is still up for debate.
How much can you reallocate from the police services budget to other things must be the result of a careful process where you look at what you can do, for example, to detask the police and have mental health calls, for example, people in crisis, dealt with by somebody else.
Okay, and the question is, will Tory's motion incite real change? For a reaction to that and more, I'm joined by Dr. David Greatzer, psychiatrist from Canada's top mental health hospital, CAMH. Good morning to you, doctor.
Good morning.
I want to get your initial reaction to Mayor Tory's motion here, which he'll be bringing to council about sort of the reorganization of Toronto Police and response to these wellness checks. Do you think that this is a first step?
I think any conversation is a first step, and it's wonderful that there's a conversation about how we're handling mental health crises. Unfortunately, I would suggest that we need to be more ambitious. Rather than simply talking about a tweak, I think we need a different model.
So let's talk about the model that you see would work for. Unfortunately, we've seen dozens of these cases of police responding to these wellness checks, these mental health calls, and seeing a horrible ending to them. So what would you like to see? What kind of model would work?
Well, there have been too many tragic outcomes. Some of them have been wellness checks. Some of them have been other involvement of police. And we just think that approach is fundamentally wrong. We think at the end of the day, if you have a physical health problem, you want somebody who's an expert in physical health problems to come to your door, a paramedic perhaps. Why would a mental health problem be addressed not by a mental health professional? And one can look internationally in the United States and Europe, and one can see other ways of approaching this problem. That's what we're suggesting, because the tragic outcomes we're seeing in the last number of weeks are tragic outcomes we've seen year after year. We have to think about this differently.
Looking at the stat here, of the nearly 1 million phone calls Toronto Police receive every year, about 30,000 are mental health related, and that's according to the force. Is this a resource issue? If we do have mental health professionals that are responding, are there enough of them to respond?
Depends on the model, and depends how committed we are to the model. Undoubtedly, we would have to have a discussion. We'd have to build capacity. We'd have to allocate resources accordingly. This is about a change in our approach to a problem that we see tens of thousands of times in Toronto every single year.
Doctor, of course, each situation is unique, but when we look at some of the calls that are made, there are some scenarios where when you see someone in uniform, it incites fear, or perhaps they've dealt with someone in uniform before and then that aggravates the situation. Is that fair to say?
I think it's very fair to say. One should recognize that everyone is different, but many people who have had contact with the police have certain memories around that. And for some people, especially when they're very ill, the presence of a uniform and frankly, a gun can be very stoking and thus can make a crisis situation worse.
Doctor, is CAMH being consulted at all with government, with police on new possible approaches?
We're ready and eager to receive phone calls, and we have to date. And we all want to emphasize that there's going to be no international solution we can simply pick and choose. We need a made-in-Canada solution. And ultimately, I think we need local governments to sit down with provincial governments and federal governments and rethink the way we're handling mental health emergencies, because what we're doing right now is not working.
Yeah, it clearly is not. Dr. David Greatzer, we wish we had more time to chat with you, but appreciate your insight this morning. Thank you.
Good morning.